looking back on this, Mr. Murdoch, presumably you see the link between ethical misbehaviour and legal misbehaviour, don't you?
Oh, yes. But legal rules are certainly devised to try and encourage ethical behaviour. I think that's a fair generalisation. Although what I would call unethical behaviour, if, for instance, I'd ask prime ministers for favours in return for public, I would have said that would be very unethical, but I doubt if it would have been criminal.
Would you agree that the magnitude of legal risk to a company is merely a function of the magnitude of ethical misbehaviour within a company?
No. Clearly, it may be.
If you were serious about managing the business risk of wrongdoing in itself, you would have to do so not at the most serious end, which is criminal behaviour, but holistically by instilling a strongly ethical culture, wouldn't you?
Could you put that again?
Yes. If you were serious about managing the business risk of wrongdoing in itself, you would have to do that not at the most serious end only, namely criminal behaviour, but holistically by instilling a strongly ethical culture. Would you agree?
Yes.
There are, however, business costs in doing that, aren't there?
I think I explained minor compared to serious unethical or criminal things.
You're right about that, Mr. Murdoch, but could it not be said that your failure to ensure that there were proper systems of internal governance in place in
the news of the world,
in the news of the world demonstrates a cavalier attitude to the business risk I have referred to?
No, I think it's unfair to put that to me. I think I've explained that I'm guilty of not paying enough attention to the news of the world at any time that I was in charge of it.
I'm asking you to separate out in your mind, Mr. Murdoch, that which may be purely personal, which I'm not actually talking about now.
No.
And that which may relate to systems failures. But insofar as there's a personal responsibility in you, at least in relation to what I'm talking about now, it is the failure to insist on proper internal systems of corporate governance being in place at all material times, particularly in relation to a newspaper such as the News of the World, whose very being was to take risk. Would you agree with that?
No. Its being was not to take risks. It had a full-time legal officer there who was meant to check every story.
But if one were to
We had systems, they proved inadequate. And I'm sorry about that.
The only system in place at the News of the World at the time which we're focusing was the human personality of Mr. Crone, who was the legal manager, and that of the editor. There was nothing else, was there, Mr. Murdoch?
No. And not that. Well, they were above him. Yes. They were corporate lawyers. They were HR people.
But as far as keeping an eye on editorial policy, there were two people, the editor and Mr. Crone, the lawyer, at that newspaper. That was their ethical control.
could it not be said that there's even greater force in the proposition that you showed a swashbuckling or cavalier attitude to these matters?
No, I don't think it can be said. I think we made mistakes. I think we should not have had one legal officer at the News of the World for 20 years. I think those sort of people should be changed every 5 or, the worst, every 10 years.